Welcome to Garden City Church, a place where you can belong before you believe. This week, George is tackling your spiritual questions. If you have spiritual questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments. We would love to respond to you and potentially have George answer these on video. If you'd like to partner with us here at the channel, there's a few ways you can do that. You can like and subscribe, you can share this video with a friend, or you can partner with us financially. If you'd like to do that, you can do that through our website or by mailing us a check. We love you guys so much. Let's get those questions answered with George.
Welcome to Spiritual Questions. We believe a community of belonging practices spiritual inquiry and discovery. Isaiah 1:18 says, "Come now, let us reason together, says the Lord." I just love that image that God wants to reason, wants to dialogue, wants to walk through life with us in a way like a father or mother would want to walk with a child. And there's learning and there's curiosity that are so central to being human. That God isn't just wanting to download creeds and theology into our brains. He actually wants us to actively think and reason with him. You know, Jesus embraced a spirituality of spiritual inquiry and curiosity. He was always engaging people's deepest and toughest questions, and he was always asking questions back, helping people to think more deeply about their thoughts, their doubts, and even their lives. Now, Jesus loved curiosity and loved through curiosity. A life of love isn't a life of knowing everything, never struggling, never doubting. It's a life of invitation to curiosity, wonder, and exploration of the universe that God has made. And Jesus beckons us into a world filled with God's love and beauty and truth and goodness. And although there is brokenness and there are things that are very difficult and hardship does come into our lives, it's so much better to be able to walk with a community that's trying to discover and be curious and be able to dialogue about the world that we live in, especially a community that's centered on Jesus. So, are we willing to explore that world with Jesus? Following his example, we're going to be taking time to dwell on our spiritual questions. Questions, many of them sent in by you, our community. So, what questions are you wrestling with these days? What questions are your friends wrestling through? Message us, let us know. We'd love to have them be part of even this series. I just think that's so important. So if you know someone who might feel like an outsider, feel like a skeptic, a doubter, or is maybe just spiritually curious, invite them to join in on the dialogue. And maybe you might feel that way, even if you're a Christian, or maybe you're just exploring faith. I want to invite you to join us. So let's get into the questions. First question is, how do I deal with difficult change? Ecclesiastes 3:1 says this: "There's a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens." This can be the good and the bad, the easy and the difficult. There's just so many seasons that we go through. One thing that we can always count on is change. That's something that is certain. Life will experience a lot of change. I don't know about you the last 4 years, if you can look back and see a lot of change, but for my life, there's been change in our community, change in our family, change in my kids. They've grown like crazy. There's rapid change in many of the industries that we work in, the fields of discipline that we work in. There's just so much change. And so a few questions I think are important when we're going through a season of change. Here's a few questions to consider. The first one is, what expectations do I need to let go of for this new season, for this maybe change of pace in my life? The other question would be, what opportunities do I need to seize right now? What opportunities are unique to right now that if you don't see them or you don't seize them, you'll miss them. They'll pass you by like a wave in the ocean. Another important question is, what season am I heading into? I know it's not always possible to completely forecast things in our lives. It's not possible to always forecast the future, but I think that sometimes we can get a sense of the waves that are coming toward us. And so I think it's important to plan our lives around our seasons, not our seasons around our plans. Let me say that again. I think it's important to plan our lives around our seasons, like the life that we're actually living, or rather than trying to do the opposite, because our plans are going to change dependent on our situations. I think when we start answering these three questions for our family, maybe for your work, maybe for whatever situation you might find yourself in, I think your priorities begin to get really clear for this time and this moment. So that's a simple way of answering that question. There's other ways I could do it, but I might start there in this season if you're experiencing change. Here's a good question. Why do you believe? Now, I think what that's asking is, why do I personally believe? Why do I still believe in Jesus? I've said this before, but this is still so true for me and my faith. One of the most convincing and miraculous elements of Jesus for me that I think often goes unseen or kind of missed is the miracle of his teachings, his ethical vision. Think about some of his teachings on power, Jesus' teachings on forgiveness, generosity, darkness, doubt, truth, freedom. Are these any less important in today's world than in the ancient world? You see, Jesus understood human need, human foible, human weakness, and human potential. If you looked back over the last 2,000 years, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find someone whose teachings have had more influence and transformed more lives for the good. I'm sure people have taken his words out of context, but if you look at his teachings, things like how to love your enemy, how to forgive and reconcile, there's nothing else like it. If you want to look for the miraculous in Jesus, you don't have to look much farther than his teachings on life in this world and his understanding of what the divine is. No other religious figure taught about power as love and service the way Jesus did, and then demonstrated his love and service by willingly dying for both his friends and his enemies. The Jesus community at its best has served cities and cultures throughout the centuries, helping the marginalized, the outsider, the broken, the forgotten. The Jesus community transcends borders, is flexible and is part of different traditions within Christianity and perspectives all around the globe, creating a beautiful mosaic and family. Now, my own experience with Jesus has really changed me, and it's changed me over and over again. My life would be so much more self-centered, more egotistical, more isolated without his presence, his invitations, his love, and his challenges to my own life. I don't know where I'd be without Jesus' guidance, without his teachings, without his community. I can say that through all the hills and the valleys of life, how grateful I am for the goodness, beauty, and life that I've found in him. I'm so grateful to be part of the community. So grateful for my church family, learning to walk the way of Jesus together. And so that's why I believe. What's up with hell? That's a good question. What is up with hell? Now, I think this question is swimming in some really deep waters. I want to acknowledge the care that needs to be taken when discussing a topic like this. Think about how this impacts, individuals and people and their families, and the questions, deep questions that people have about the eternal nature of existence and of God and eternal destination. Like this is treading on some sensitive topics. I want this response be hopefully helpful, and I don't think we should treat it lightly or flippantly. So I'm going to give you just some broad perspectives that Christians have held over the years about this theological topic of hell and really eternal destination. So the first perspective I'll give you, or position that someone might hold, is some people say hell is a literal place, an eternal place of flame and suffering, an eternal state of conscious torment and punishment. Another view believes that hell is a final extinguishing or burning up of the human soul that has chosen to reject God. This is called annihilationism. It emphasizes the fact that although God seeks and draws all people toward himself, humans ultimately can choose to reject God, and that God allows this rejection, but he does not seek eternal torture or punishment for the choice to reject him. Instead, their souls are extinguished into non-existence, so they're not in eternal torment. Another view believes that hell is a refining fire that ends up burning up the impurities of our life while simultaneously refining the gold of our lives. And this view is often called universalism, where everyone eventually and over time makes it into the blissful state. Love wins and redeems everyone and everything. The last view we'll talk about is this: the slow glorification or deterioration of the human soul in eternity. The glorification or deterioration of the soul into eternity is based on the direction or movement of the human soul toward God or away from God, toward Christ or away from Christ. If we keep the original purpose of humanity in view, that we're image bearers, humans are image bearers, made to reflect God's goodness, his nature, his character, to the whole world, making us stewards of God's world, hell then becomes this freely chosen direction of a life reflecting or centering on other things, reflecting anything other than God himself, worshiping anything other than God. This means that we bring hellish moments, behaviors, and choices onto and into our world by our most hellish reflections. I'm sure some of us can think of some of the worst areas and times of our life and some of the worst images that we've seen in this world. And we can really say there are moments where there is hell on earth. And a life that gives more and more into those, let's call them dark flames, can become consumed by those flames. So we're either turning toward the eternal source of light and life. And this is Christ and the wisdom of Christ, or we are turning away from the eternal source of life toward darkness, away from wisdom, away from life. Both journeys in this perspective are eternal. Nothing remains in the dark that wants to be in the light of God through Christ, meaning God wants all to come to him, and anybody that would turn to him is received. He also doesn't force the door of our hearts open to him. As C.S. Lewis has noted, in this view, the door is shut. The door of our hearts is shut from the inside, not from the outside. It's locked from the inside, not from the outside. So it's our response to God. So it's up to you. There's a great quote from Dallas Willard who held this view. He said, "Whatever you think hell is, God did not create hell because he's mad and he wants to see people suffer, or that he enjoys torturing them for eternity. The only reason there is a hell is because God makes provision for what people want, and hell is simply the best God can do for some people." Dallas is really saying that some people don't want God, and God doesn't force himself on anyone. God honors our desire, our choice, or our choices with our life, the direction of our life, and doesn't force anyone who doesn't want to be with him to eternally be with him. So this view takes into account the risk and responsibility of free will. It takes seriously the importance of character formation, that the direction of our character and our lives is in a heavenly direction or not, and also justifies the purpose of Jesus coming to earth. In this perspective, Jesus didn't come to save us from nothing. He came to save us from deteriorating away from being the image of God and away from God for all eternity, and saves us for a flourishing life with God. So these are four perspectives. Various Christians have held them over the ages. I lean toward the last one. Just that's kind of my bent, especially with kind of my background and my understanding of the image of God. But I have friends who disagree and hold different perspectives, and I think it's an important subject that should be that the conversation should be caring and compassionate when we talk about it. Thanks for joining us for today's spiritual questions. We'd love you to join in on the dialogue. Send us any questions you might have or your friends might have. We'd love to engage with that. And so hopefully you send them in. Hopefully we have time. But we do believe everyone is on a spiritual journey. And here are a few questions for you to consider as you're looking to move forward and as you're going through this series with us. The first question is, where are you on your spiritual journey? Often we kind of define this into three broad areas: exploring faith in Jesus, trusting, like maybe beginning to trust Jesus, and then living a life that's actively following Jesus and aligning our values and our behaviors around what he values and the way he wants us to act in the world. So exploring, trusting, and following. Where are you at on your spiritual journey? The next question is, where can you see evidence of God in your life that maybe generates feelings of gratitude? If you were to look at your past and maybe your present, where do you see God at work on your spiritual journey? And the next question would be, where would you like to be on your journey? What might that look like? What might be getting in the way of your progress? This is an important question. Sometimes knowledge, you're like, I don't have the knowledge. That's a barrier. Maybe social anxiety, not feeling good enough. I don't know my purpose. Maybe shame or feelings of shame, guilt, and sin. I don't know. What is maybe keeping you from stepping forward? And this last question is, what is it going to take to step forward in faith? Is it new hope, mentorship, forgiveness, freedom? Like, what is it that would help you take a step forward? Try to identify that this week. Guys, I love you so much. I'll see you next week.
My name is Bethany Bontrager, and I am a second grade teacher at Desi Evans Elementary, which is a school in the Puyallup School District. One thing that I'm passionate about with my teaching is supporting students, and I love seeing that like aha moment when they finally get a concept or an idea. That's always just like so rewarding. And I also kind of view my job almost as like a ministry with, how I'm serving my students and how I am supporting my families. Yeah, faith plays a huge, huge role. The one thing about teaching is that everyone says like, I don't know how you could do your job until it's summer break. And then they're like, oh, teaching, wow, what a great setup you have. You get summers off, you get winters off, like all these different things. But, any other time in the year, it's, oh, I don't know how you could do that. Bless you. You have the patience of a saint. I don't know, I could never. I think also a lot of people don't realize like how much unpaid work teachers put in outside of the classroom. And that also goes back to like the headspace that I find myself, I'm always in that headspace, and it's hard for me to shut that off. There are so many ways that people can be praying for teachers and schools, especially as we're both getting back into the swing of things, back to school. It's an adjustment. Sometimes that can be hard, and all of those people need prayer and patience and love and